Welcome to the Dean Legge Show here on Dog Post. Thanks to everyone for joining me again. Every Sunday night and every Tuesday night we do this. And, a big win for Georgia, and they keep it moving along. They've got the Cats, the number 11 ranked Kentucky team. Probably one of the best Kentucky teams we've seen in some time. Kentucky has probably the best running back in the conference. And Benny Snell, he is a going to be a major problem for Georgia, at least a major challenge. I've only watched so much of Kentucky so far this year. I watched them play Vanderbilt live, and I watched them play Florida. I watched all of the Florida game, but some of it I did not watch live. I'll say this about Kentucky: no matter if Kentucky had won against Missouri or not, Georgia and Kentucky would have the winner of the game would still go to Atlanta. So Florida may not have been knocked out, but anyway, the whole point is that Kentucky, if you're Georgia, you got to go up there and win. That's all there is to it. That's how this goes. But let's recap the game with the Gators first. A significant win, another long win, lopsided win for Georgia over a ranked team. There's two lopsided wins over ranked teams so far this year. South Carolina, obviously, not great and no longer ranked, but they were ranked at the time. So, I thought it was, and then if you are watching this on YouTube, then you know what I thought about the game, and on Twitter, I tweeted that out as well. But it was a solid win for the Dogs, and really not a surprising one. I mean, everything that sort of we talked about during the week came to fruition. Florida could run the ball, which they did. Georgia could run on Florida, which eventually they did, 180 yards. And then Felipe Franks was going to make mistakes. One of them was a 3-point mistake, so no big deal. But the other one just killed momentum for Florida I think it was in the first quarter, second quarter, whatever. I have not been able to rewatch the game yet. So, I mean, down to Jacksonville and back is a lot, I have to say. It really can be. But, I asked Dog Post subscribers who they thought the player of the game was, and it was almost unanimous. As always, a performance player of the game and performance play of the game brought to you by Bank South. As a Georgia fan, you know how important a good performance is to reach an overall goal. And Jake Fromm needed to have a good performance, and he did. Bank South is no different. That's why Bank South has designed an all-new checking account that performs for you to help you reach your financial goals. Open an interest-bearing performance checking account at Bank South today and let your money perform for you. Visit banksouth.com today for more information. Bank South. This is important. Bank South is a Georgia-based community bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender. Jake Fromm, the Bank South player of the game, and he really did play well. I don't really know what else to say about it. He was that last throw to Terry Godwin won them the game, and I can't remember if I wrote about it or talked about it on here or both. But it really was a matter of, Jake Fromm needed to play well. It was going to be up to him to play better and to play well. And he did. And Georgia won by 3 touchdowns. So what you're starting to see out of the program, I think, is some more receivers are stepping up. I mean, J.J. Holloman had the best game of his career, obviously. And they like it. I mean, obviously, I'm on the field for the games, so I see certain things right up close. And Holloman is and you know this from covering recruiting too, but Holloman's a long, slender guy who can go up and get it, and he did that yesterday on that one touchdown. It was a beautiful catch, back shoulder. The other one was just a straight up, good, just really, really good throw from Jake that got the job done. It was just what the doctor ordered for these dogs. Everybody's freak out moment has come and gone, and I'm sure it will come back again soon. Not to worry about that. That's always right around the corner. So you've still got to deal with Kentucky. And Kentucky, having seen them play limited, I did not watch Mizzou last night with Kentucky. I know that they got away with one, or at least that's the way it was described to me. But they are a solid team. They have a pretty good defense. They've not seen a lot of offenses like Georgia's, although Missouri's is a pretty good defense. Excuse me, a pretty good offense, and Kentucky's defense handled them pretty well. You saw what they did physically with and against the Gators. So I think it's a completely legitimate game Georgia could lose. You have to take it very, very seriously. It's an important game. Obviously, if you don't win this game, you do not win the division. It's that simple. So we've got the Bank South keys to the game down here for the YouTube and Facebook audience. And number one is championship of the East is on the line. This is it, for lack of a better term. There's not much a simpler way of putting it. And Georgia's going to have to play a good game to win. They're not going to be able to go up there and kind of slop around, etc. I'm going to talk about Commonwealth Stadium in a minute. It's not the easiest place to play on earth either. Number two for the Dogs, Bank South keys to the game. As a program, Georgia's been here before. This is not new. It's new for Kentucky. I mean, this is the biggest game in Kentucky program's history since the 70s, so a quarter century. Almost a half a century. So it really is going to be interesting to see how Kentucky deals with that. Could Georgia have a letdown in this game because they just played their biggest game of the season and won and all this stuff? Yeah, they could. But the thing about that is, if you really are focusing on each game particularly, then the details will take care of themselves. And my suspicion is that the details are being taken care of right now in Athens. And number three, finally, and this probably is the most important one, is Jake Fromm has to continue to play well. Fromm has to continue good play, but nonetheless, he's got to play at least similar to the way that he did against Kentucky, against the Gators. If he does that, Kentucky won't win this game. They won't have the ability to. So having covered, I've been up to Kentucky. I did not go in the year 2000 or the year 2002, but since 1998, I've been up there pretty much every other year. It is an interesting place, Commonwealth. It can get extremely loud there, for sure. It is not a small stadium. In 98, they were expanding because Kentucky is one of the schools in the conference that really has invested in the facilities. If you've never been up there, they have a very nice baseball stadium. They have a very nice football stadium. Rupp is probably their, if you want to call it, worst facility. They don't own Rupp. They have an agreement with the city, so it's not completely their call there. But Kentucky has really nice facilities. I totally understand why kids want to go there, particularly if you're winning. So it's one of those things where it can be a challenging place to play. It's going to be cold. It's going to be in the 50s. Could be in the 40s. So this will be a challenging game. With that said, if you can't beat Kentucky, you don't deserve to win the league. You just don't. And Kentucky has earned this situation. So has Georgia, and we're just going to see what happens. My guess is Georgia will win. They're a 10-point favorite right now, which is mathematically, you're getting to a pretty high number there mathematically. Let me give you the percentage chance that Georgia would win the game. While I'm looking that up, I can go ahead and tell you about the Bank South play of the game. So a 10-point favorite is a 77% chance to win the game. It started at 12 and now it's at 10. It may settle at 10.5 or 11, but once you're in that more than 3/4 ballpark, I mean, once you're over 4 points, you should win the game if you're the favorite. And like you watched Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin lost this week, but they didn't have their quarterback, so it can happen, but it's not common. Yeah, and the other thing, what annoys me a little bit about when I talk about percentages and so forth, is that when you say it's 80%, that means it's still there's it's just not the side you'd prefer to be on. You'd rather be Georgia going into this game than Kentucky, and I think that's relatively understood by most people. A couple of other sort of, if you want to call it, pressing issues for folks. Um, why didn't Justin Fields play in the game? I wouldn't have put him in there. Not the way that Jake Fromm played. And I really got to say, the whole thing has already gotten old to me. Um, I would play Justin more, but when Jake Fromm is playing the way that he did on Saturday, there really shouldn't be a lot of discussion about why didn't you play Justin Fields. You want to have that discussion after the LSU game? Fine, because he did not, Jake did not play well against LSU. So it's both at the same time. But I got to say, there doesn't, I don't know why this has to be the conversation. Justin Fields is a spectacular quarterback prospect. We've not seen a lot of people like him at Georgia. He could be he could go down as one of the best, if not the best quarterback of all time at Georgia. The problem is the guy that is the starting quarterback, if you want to call it a problem, has lost exactly 3 games. So there's really not a ton to discuss there other than, are you going to win the conference with Jake Fromm, or are you not going to win the conference with Jake Fromm? Because I don't see there being any way that he is replaced. There's just no way that's going to happen. And if you're a big Justin fan, that's great. I'm not against Justin. I mean, I think he is exceptional. But the situation is the situation. And if he transfers, he transfers. Same thing goes for Fromm. I mean, if Fromm is not the starter in 2019 and he transfers, that's not good, but that's where we're at. And, you know, that's the thing, like, holding over, say it this way. It should never be that people are so overwhelmingly concerned that the backup quarterback is going to transfer. That can't be how you run your program. This program is above Jake Fromm. It's above Justin Fields. It's above everybody. This is not about one player. Last year, Nick and Sony, and with what happened with Jacob Eason. So this is not about one player. Georgia can do without any one player. It's beyond that now. So that's the thing I think people need to remember, is that as exceptional as Justin is and will be, or as, you know, much of a winner and really good competitor and performer as Jake Fromm has been, no, there's going to be quarterbacks after those two, but this program's got to be about more than one kid, and that's really, folks are saying that Justin said this for decades now, and it's never a lot of fun for anybody. I mean, the backup is always the guy people want to see. Totally possible that things are not as bad as people are saying they are. It's totally possible that that's the case. And, having no real connection with either quarterback, any school, X, Alabama, Hawaii, wherever, it's not just about that one player. So that's really all I have to say about that. I'm getting drained of that conversation. It is a draining thing. And I get it, but if you've done what I've done and you've lived through, DJ David, you've lived through the Matthew Stafford, Joe Cox, Joe Tereshinski saga, if you lived through Brian Schottenheimer, you at some point kind of say, all right, this program is, period. So What it is getting ready for a big fight with Kentucky. They have quarterback issues, believe it or not. And, that could be the downfall of the Cats. Like, I would be worried about this one thing if I were Kentucky. You know, you got a huge buildup. And the Cats, I mean, like, their fans love them big time. They travel for basketball. And in Lexington, ball school, and that's fine. That's what they are. But when they play football, they're just as loud as anybody else. So they're not, it's not like they're, just happy to be there. They're not just going to be happy to be there this week. So you're going into the dungeon here, and you're going to have to figure out how to get out alive in a knife fight. Because that's what this is going to be. This isn't air raid Kentucky where they're slinging it all over the field. They're coming to the game with 2x4s. They're going to try to hit you over the head 25 times and hope that you only hit them over the head 20. I mean, they're ready to get hit in the head too. They're into it. Like, they like this. So that's their style. I mean, Benny Snell is a kid that is going to go down as the best running back ever at Kentucky. He is a fighter. He has plenty to say. He is a good player. And he is a legit problem to deal with. Their passing game has been anywhere from non-existent to bad. They were bad against Vanderbilt. I mean, they were bad against Vanderbilt. But, they won the game against Mizzou with a pass. So, you don't want to get too lulled to sleep. I don't know how much of that was, ineptitude by Kentucky. I mean, by Mizzou. Probably some of it. But, it's kind of hard to figure out how to lose a game when you're up 14-3 in the fourth quarter. But they did. And, Kentucky now has a shot, not just to win the league, I mean, they can get to the playoff. That sounds completely crazy. But who else is better positioned? Well, better positioned is not probably. But they got to still beat Georgia and win the conference against either LSU or Alabama. That is not a great position to be in. You'd rather be Clemson, for sure. I mean, Kentucky... If Kentucky played Clemson's schedule, they would still be 7-1. They would probably lose to Texas A&M, but I don't know who else the ACC has that would really get in Kentucky's way. In the Big Ten, you would think they would lose to Ohio State, who just lost to Purdue. So Clemson, Ohio State have proven that they can lose to anyone. I mean, they're good at losing to just randos, but Kentucky has really gotten it together, you have to say. But I do, on Tuesday night, we're going to go into this deeper. I'll dig into it deeper and actually come with some intelligence here, which is rare from me, right? But I really want to look at it harder before I start to say, hey, this is what they do. But, I mean, it's obvious what their plan is, which is to, run up and down the field, literally run. Try to impose their will on you. And they have done that. They have done that to Florida. They did that to Missouri. I mean, they're not playing these games in the 40s. They're not losing 40-something to 30-something. Kentucky is winning dogfights, 15-14. They have played well. They are to be respected completely. And taken very seriously. So it's this Kentucky team has earned where they're at. Solid defense. They've allowed 20, 16, 10, 7, 10, 20, 7, 14. I mean, I don't care what league you're in. If the most points you've allowed is 20, you're doing okay. So, and they still got to play Georgia. They still got to play Tennessee. Middle Tennessee will not give them trouble. I mean, Louisville is awful. They are a 37-point dog to Clemson. They are horrible. So they Mississippi State thought that they could play bully ball with Kentucky. Kentucky punched them straight in their face, 28-7. The Gators 27-16. The one thing about Kentucky right now is their offense is really struggling to score. So they've scored 14, 14, and 15. And that's what's happened to them. 14, 14, and 15. That's what's going to catch up to them. And that's the only issue, right now. So they chunked it up and down the field pretty good yesterday, 267 yards, but they're not scoring. The problem is they're not scoring touchdowns. And it's just, they're 3 of 14 on third downs. They went for it 3. So it's not ideal. Missouri stopped them in the run game. I mean, Kentucky only had 91 yards yesterday, but they won. They are winners. Did you ever think anyone would say that about Kentucky football? So what you have to do in these situations, just the same way when you're looking at Georgia, Florida, you take the logos off the helmet and you just look at what's reality on the tape. And Kentucky is a physical team that is limited in the pass game. They have a solid defense, but they're struggling to score right now. 2 touchdowns in a game. I mean, Georgia scores 2 touchdowns in quarters. They have been scoring. I mean, unless what happens to Georgia on this coming Saturday is the same thing that happened with LSU. They're going to score 38 points, Georgia. They're just going to. I mean, Florida's defense is pretty good. And they still almost scored 40. You got to think they're kicking a field goal from the 1-yard line. That's 4 points. So that gets you over 40 alone right there. So there were plays that were left out on the field, which always happens. But when you're only scoring 2 touchdowns in a game, that's a problem. Big time. And, Kentucky has earned their situation. No doubt they have. But they have not scored over 30 points in an SEC game yet. So this is all about breaking their defense. And if you do that, you're going to be punching that ticket to Atlanta. I mean, it's not like the season's over if you beat Kentucky. Right? That's just the latest challenge. Did y'all watch Tech? Y'all can poop all over Tech if you want to, but the new quarterback played outstanding, and they just ran up and down the field on a hapless Virginia Tech. I get that the ACC is worse than hot garbage, but either you're playing well or you're not. Tech all of a sudden has flipped the switch. Clemson is playing dramatically better than they did 4 weeks ago. You'd say Florida was, but Georgia just took them just now. So it all depends, but there's plenty of season left here, win or lose. But I fully expect Georgia to win. How they will win, we'll just have to see. Let me try to answer a question or two here from Twitter because I can actually see occasionally the Twitter feed. What do you make of the post-game Florida comments? These guys, excuse me. Woo! That's me being sick of Jacksonville right there. You know what, man? 2 things about that. When you play sports, it's hard to wrap your mind around somebody being better than you because you've worked really hard to get where you're at. But I do get tired of the better team didn't win. No, the better team won yesterday for sure. And I think the better team won when Georgia played LSU. It just happened to be that day. If you re-rack that game, if you run it back, does Georgia win that game ever? They certainly could. We may see that in Atlanta. What they're saying, they're just Georgia's. They're deep on the offensive line. They're fortunate that they're deep on the offensive line. You got Andrew Thomas getting banged up. You got Kendall Baker was getting banged up. And you have Ben Cleveland who was out. So that's 3 potential starters, certainly 2 starters. I would guess that soon Ben will play, whether it's Whether it's Kentucky or Auburn, I'm not sure. Another guy to watch out for eventually here is David Wilson, and we'll just see how that goes. And maybe more about that and what we're hearing coming up soon. If you're joining me on Facebook, I appreciate you being on here. My name is Dean Legge. I've covered Georgia for 18 years. I've been a Heisman Trophy voter since 2005, and we cover Georgia every single day. So go over to dawgpost.com, DAWGPOST.com. David Marshall, we did not ask. No one asked about him after the game. I don't know the answer to that. I'm not aware of any new injuries. I believe, and sometimes y'all know better than I do. That I'm pretty certain Andrew Thomas came back in the game. Here's a basic question that I will try to answer here. People are asking me, why do you wear purple to games? At first, I don't wear it to every game. And this is not a purple shirt. This is blue. But at first, I wore it because I didn't want to get stuff thrown on me. So when you're a photographer and you're on the field, most of the teams that Georgia plays, they're not purple. I mean, if you're kind of steering clear of any stupidity in the stands. At Georgia Tech, you can get drinks thrown on you. Alabama, well, not really Auburn, but at different spots in the league, you want to steer clear of having things, thrown at you, particularly when you're carrying around a bunch of very expensive equipment. That's what I started doing it initially, and now people just recognize me in it, so I just wear it, make it pretty basic. Robert Beal was at a funeral. That was the reason why he did not travel, and so condolences to him and his family for that. But, everyday life occurs too. So these kids are still kids. They're human beings. And that's why I would encourage everyone, this is a decent-sized audience, please remember that we're all humans. I mean, I know this is about sports tonight, but, these kids are kids. They're really children. They're young men. And if you all want to really scream and yell about any player, I don't necessarily think that's out of line or out of bounds. But just, let's be sensible with our criticism of kids. Saying someone needs to play better is not the same as, whatever, some sort of racial stupidity or whatever. And so let's keep it as PG as possible. I'm not saying you got to always be positive, because that's not really how life works. But I do think it's important to be a human being as much as you can. All right, last question here. Is Lexington a nice place to go to a game? It is one of the best places to go. Hey, by the way, one other thing. I have heard a lot of complaints about getting into the Gator Bowl, for lack of a better term. And I don't know if y'all experienced that. It is really one of the roughest places to get into as it relates to literally just getting into the stadium is difficult. So they need to clean that up in Jacksonville. There's just no excuse for it being that difficult. I know the Florida fans were late getting to the game, but I was told that a lot of them had a hard time getting in those gates. And I guess Georgia folks didn't. Maybe it was exacerbated by the Gators getting there late, but there's no excuse for that as a stadium. I mean, you're supposed to be a world-class stadium. That shouldn't happen. At Kentucky, you pretty much can get in and get out. Now, I'll say this. It can get a little confusing around Commonwealth, what's called Kroger Field now. It can get a little bit confusing. But Lexington is a really nice town. It's got a perimeter around it. It's called Man of War, which a lot of stuff is named after horses and stuff. So it's a great experience. It's going to be a little different this time, though. There's going to be plenty of, testosterone going in the stands for Georgia and Kentucky. I'm excited for it. I think it's going to be a great game, great time. I expect Georgia to win. They got to go out there and prove it. All right, Tuesday night, we will see everyone back here on Dog Post. Go visit the site right now, and thank you for joining me tonight.